Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Beyond the Balance webcast. I hope everyone is well. My name is Daria and I'm the Financials Product Manager. And I want to thank you for joining us today. And we're going to talk about Financials 11.0. Where is it now? Over the next half hour, I just want to cover some things for you guys about the changes that have come about in Financials 11.0. I just want to talk about why we made the change. We're going to look at some of the things that we've done on the document manager, which you may or may not see. And then I'm going to dive right into the financial statements and let's take a look at where is it now. And then we're going to briefly cover some of the changes to our help also. So why don't we get started, jump right in there. And we're going to take a look at our CaseWare Working Papers Document Manager. So first of all, why the change? The biggest reason is we want to make the product easier for you, our end users. We've put a lot of time and thought into this last year on what it is that we need to do to make the product user-friendly and more intuitive to you. And so through a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, probably mostly my tears, we have come up with the new interface for the Financials product. I want to assure you that no developers were injured in the making of this new release, but we hope that you really like it and we hope that you can see the thought that went into it and hopefully have made it more intuitive to you, our users. One of the first things that you'll notice when you take a look at your new document manager, if you've updated to version 11, is that there is no ER document anymore. ER, or financial statement options. We affectionately referred to it as the ER document. So on the document manager, there is no more ER. You'll still probably see the customizing for the engagement folder because if you've already been using the financials template for a little while now, we haven't too drastically changed your document manager except to remove the ER financial statement options document. But if you're new to financials or have only just started to implement after a previous version, you'll notice there is no customizing for the engagement folder. And we've also cleaned up on the document manager the template firm author section. So we now call it our template setup and control documents area, and we now have moved some of the documents that we had previously in a folder up at the top of the document manager. We've moved that all into the controls. So if we ever ask you for your version information, here's where that document is now located. And then if you are the firm author, all the documents that you're going to require are in the customizing the template folder. So those are the changes that we've made to the document manager. Again, the biggest change, what we've done is we've eliminated ER. And our thought process there was that ER was not intuitive to our users. We found that the settings in ER, when you went to make changes there, you weren't always sure what was happening in your financial statements. So what we've done is we've completely moved over everything that we did in ER is now in the financial statements. So what I want to do is I'm just going to open up my financial statements, and if this is the first time that you're using the new financial statements version 11 on a client file, this is what's going to happen when you first open up the financial statements. So I'm just going to open up my financial statements here, and you're going to be, first of all, we ask you if you want to add any additional recommended content. So your firm authors may have been making some changes to settings based on your engagement type and things like that, whether you want some new content. I'm going to say no. But as a new to the financial statements, doesn't matter if, I'm not talking about if your firm is new to the financial statements or this particular client is new to the financial statements. When you first open up the financial statements, you now are directed to our entity information ribbon, So you can see the whole interface of financials has changed, and what we're doing is trying to help you set information for your client right from the outset. We're trying to help you, walk you through the process. So when you first open up your financial statements, the first time you're using it in a client file, entity information is the ribbon that you'll see. And you can see we've got a bubble here that just kind of guides you, tells you that step one is you want to complete information in the entity information. Then what you're going to do is move over to your global setup. And then we've got some further ribbons that we want you to go to. So I'm just going to close this ribbon, this little bubble here, and you can see entity information. So here is where you're defining the defaults for your client file. What content do you need in your client file based on your public entity, based on your reporting period, areas required. So you're used to seeing this dialogue in your old financial statements, but we've just moved it and put it into the entity information. So brand new client using financials, entity information ribbon is where you come into your financial statements and define the content that needs to be in your client file. Once you've done that, you go into the global setup ribbon. And the global setup ribbon is where now you're defining the global look and feel for your financial statements. So things like, where do my dates appear? What's my date format? What's the currency that I'm using? What are my balance types that I'm going to be? Am I doing my rounding? Am I doing, how am I rounding that information by adding up the map numbers, then rounding, or rounding each map number? So all of this information is contained within the global setup ribbon. Now, the global setup ribbon and the entity information ribbon should only be needed to be accessed the very first time that you are creating the financial statements for a new client, or if you're new to financials. Once you've set that information, you shouldn't have to go back in here and change anything unless something monumental happens to the client. So for example, if you it's a review client and it's now being an audit, so then you'd want to go into your entity information ribbon and change that from a review to an audit so that you bring in the right content for that client. Okay, so that's the first time that you're in financials, brand new client or brand new to financials. For the rest of us, if this is year 2, year 3, what have you on financials, when you're working in your financial statements, the very first ribbon that you're going to see when you open up your financial statements is the home ribbon. So I am in my home. I've been in this client for a number of years. I've been using financials for a number of years on this client. So home is the very first place that your financial statements will open up to. Now, what we've done is we've taken everything from your ER financial statement options document and we have moved it into these ribbons. And what we've done is we've tried to make it more intuitive to you as you're working through your financial statements. We've based it along the lines of the Word and Excel ribbons. So in terms of workflow, what are you doing in your financial statements? And the home ribbon is where you're going to see most common actions in your financial statements. Most of these items that you're going to see in the home ribbon are also repeated in the other ribbons in the financial statements. So just like in Word and Excel, the home ribbon has the most commonly used actions. We've got the same thing going on here. Okay? Now, the insert ribbon is any time that you want to insert something into your financial statements, be it another statement, a report, notes, policies. Here is where you're going to use the insert ribbon to do that. And that also means the same thing for when you're in a table. If you want to insert a new table, you can do that here from the insert. And of course, because I'm not clicked into a table at this time, we have made all of our buttons context sensitive. So that's our insert menu. Anytime you want to bring something into your financial statements, you head straight to the insert menu. Now the format menu, this is the menu where I need to change the look and feel on something in my financial statements. So, I don't want this to be flush to the left. I want to increase its indent level. So this is where you want to change the look and feel of parts of your financial statements. So if you need to resize your table, or you're aligning your rows and your columns, or you want to modify some of the styles that you see in the financial statements, you come into the format ribbon. So if it's look and feel for a specific area, you do it in the format ribbon. And again, depending on where my cursor is located, menu items might not be available to me. Okay, so it's intuitive, it knows where you are, and it knows what options should be available to you. All right, while I'm sitting in my table here, I also have the table tools. So anything that you want to do to the structure of your statement, I'm in my balance sheet here, so the structure of my financial statements, the table itself, I'm going to come into the Table Tools ribbon. So again, you'll notice resize is repeated here because it is, again, something structurally that you're changing, or it could be a format. So we're trying to be, you don't have to hunt and peck all over the place to try and find things. Common actions repeated throughout where necessary. So if I look at my table tools, we have also aligned the right-click menu. Before, you used to see that it was line properties. It's now called row properties, and it's broken out into your attributes and your print options. So those also align with the attributes here and your print options. So what we've done is we have got in the attributes, these are things that you used to do where if you wanted to switch a row to be a title row, if you wanted to subtract this particular row from the subtotal. So all of those actions are now in the attributes. Anything related to whether a row should print in your final document is in the print button here. So you can see print if there's a balance, which is always our default, always print, never print, or print selected columns. Those are now in our print button. In the line properties, if you recall, because I'm sure you are as familiar with this financial statement as I am, we used to have the options for making your row input, or making your description input, or changing your description down in the mapping database, the extended mapping database. We've done away with that because what we've done is we've now made all of the descriptions input, so that if you want to change it, you don't have to go to a button and make that change. You can just come in here and type in your description and hit enter. Now what we have done is, if you want to change the description throughout your financial statements, wherever, let's say, map number 113 is being consumed, in a note, in a schedule, what we've done is we've asked you, do you want to update all instances? And this is the exact same functionality that we had in the line properties menu when we said change the extended description. So that's what we're doing, is we're changing the map number extended description. If I say yes. So this would now be wherever 113 is used in my financial statements, this is what I will see as the description, and if I popped back over into working papers, I'd also see in the account mapping, I would see the extended description of investments. Alternatively, I can just go and I can say accounts receivable, and if I hit enter and I say no, this is now just on this line. Wherever 117 is consumed, it will always say accounts receivable net of allowances. It is only this line that is changed, and you'll notice that we have the red dot here to let reviewers know that this is not pulling a formula, this is not in the database, this is a manual entry override. Okay, so that's what we've done with the descriptions. Now you're going to say, what about lines? I used to sometimes have to change the actual numeric values. Well, that's when I go to my input. So here I go. I can now just click on the input, and that'll now give me the numeric values to also be input. So that's what we've done with table tools. Again, changes that you need to make to the structure of your tables, you can find them in the table tools. I'm going to jump ahead a bit here, and I just want to point out, maybe some of you eagle eyes have already spotted this, that we have a menu over here that is context sensitive. One of these ribbons is a context sensitive ribbon, and because my cursor is located in the balance sheet, if I click here, it'll say I'm in the balance sheet, and these are all of the options that were in your financial statement document that controlled specific settings for your balance sheet. If I now scroll down into my income statement, this menu is context sensitive. It's going to update, and it's going to show me the options that are available for my income statement. And again, these are all the things that you used to see in your ER document. I'll just point out, titles and terms. What am I going to actually name this statement? How am I referring to income? What is loss referred to as? So again, we've only moved options from the ER document. Some of them we might have renamed just to make it a bit more intuitive. But everything that you were used to seeing over in ER is now over in the ribbon. So that's my context sensitive ribbon, and again, depending where my cursor is located, the options and the name of this ribbon change. All right, let me jump back to my note tools. I'm going to go over to my note tools. It's also smart. I'm not sitting in any of my notes, so it is primarily grayed out. And if I just scroll down into my notes, and if I click in, you'll now start to see that the menu items become active for me. All of these options here is how are you going to control the printing of your notes, some of the operations that you used to do, like sorting, you're inserting your paragraph before and after. All of these options, again from ER, that were related to notes have been moved here. However, if I go to my notes to financial statements, this again is the context sensitive ribbon, and these are the global settings for your notes, whereas the note tools are done on a note-by-note basis. So if I wanted to modify my headings, these are my note levels, so referring to my how my note numbering is displayed, I come into my modify note headings, and this is done at the note level. Everything in the notes to financial is global for my notes. Okay. The next ribbon that we have is our navigate ribbon, and if I just click over here, same thing as what we used to have in the navigate before. We're jumping you out to most commonly used places in your working papers file, so you don't have to actually click over into working papers. We've also got the financials, so if you want to jump to different places within your financial statements themselves, you can click on the area button here. I also want to point out, again, being conscious of making it user-friendly, I don't want to have to go into the navigate, then go to the areas, and then select my statement. That's too many clicks. I may as well have just scrolled. So what we've also done is this particular item here, we've also put on the very top, so you don't actually have to go into the ribbon to select and jump to a different spot. You can use the bookmarks here, which is what we've got, this little bookmark icon here, and I can just jump around to the different locations in my financial statements. The other thing I want to point out is if I go to my engagement properties, I want to let you know that you no longer have to set that your file is yearly. That's what you had to do in ER, yearly or quarterly. We asked that information, and then we asked you what period it was. You don't have to do that anymore. If you've already got it set in your reporting dates in working papers, we're reading what you're setting here. So if you want this file to be quarterly, make sure you set quarterly here and set your active period, and then that's what will populate into your financial statements. Okay, so we're trying to reduce the amount of work that you had to do. You already entered it in working papers. Let's go ahead and use that. Let's not make you make that change. Okay. The other thing that we did is we added the document properties. So if there are any of you out there who are using the multi-financials, when you go to multi-financials, I'm just going to go into my working paper file. If you created another set of financial statements using the multi-financials option here, one of the things that you had to do, and you would be using multi-financials if you want to create another set of financial statements for different entities, if you're working in a consolidation, or you would use the multi-financials if you're doing different reporting periods. So quarterly, maybe you're doing a review for one of the entities and doing an audit for another one. You can use multi-financials to create the different set of financial statements right in the same working papers. When you were doing that, though, you'd have to come back out to the document manager. You'd have to go to the properties of this new set of financial statements. Please don't do it to this FSCDN here. And you would change the period, or you'd change the entity if you had a consolidated file, and then go back into the financial statements. Well, we've simplified that for you, and we have you the document properties right here. Click it. You can come in and make that change when you're in that set of financial statements. Because I know if you're like me, I would do the multi-financials, I'd open up the financial statements and say, oh, I forgot to do that, I have to close it, go back out to the working papers, and then I can come back in here. Made it simple for you. Okay, so that's our Navigate ribbon. Now, the last ribbon we're going to take a look at is the content management, and this is wherever you had it used to be in the old document menu in the financial statements, and if you wanted to browse for what notes have been added or what new notes or expired notes, you'd go to the document menu and go to content management. Well, we've added that all right here, straight and simple for you. The other thing that we've done is we've got your check for updates, so you can quickly just check and see what may have changed from what your firm author or the CaseWare author may have changed in the library files. And now you can see what is quickly just doing the check for updates, and then you can quickly update them in your file. The other thing I want to point out is the highlighting options. I'm just going to turn on the highlighting options here, and I'm going to go down to my notes to my financial statements. And I just want to show you what we've done is we have now added indicators so that reviewers and also everybody in the financial statements can check and see the status of their notes. So on this particular item, you can see that the author has expired this note. So very quickly you can see and make a determination, is this still applicable for this client, or do I need to remove this from this client now because it is an expired note. The other item that we have here is if I scroll down a bit more here into my notes, you'll see that my cash and equivalents and my inventories also have an indicator. And this is an indication to you that a newer note is available in the library. So something has changed and you can now update that note. You have that visual cue right on your financial statements that there's something newer available in the library. Alternatively, if we just take a look at the check for updates, you can also see that cash and cash equivalents was denoted as something having an update, as was the inventories. Okay. So those are our ribbons, and as I said, we tried to make it in terms of your workflow. What are you doing? Am I inserting content? Am I customizing the look and feel of this particular section of my financial statements? Am I working in a structural change on a table? That's what we tried to think about when we were pulling everything from ER into the financial statements. And hopefully by making the change right in the financial statements, you can see the visual cues as to what is being done to your financial statements. Just also want to point out that depending on your screen size, real estate is sometimes precious to us, so we can collapse those ribbons. And then, of course, when you go into it, it just expands it again. The other thing that we have here is our template help resources. So if I click on that, it's going to show you my online help. And that is a significant change that we've done this year, is that the help is now online. So as long as you've got an internet connection, you click on the online help or any of the help buttons, and it will take you to that online help. If you aren't online, we do have that loaded in our CaseWare applications here. And if you look at the CaseWare Financials documentation, we do have an HTML version loaded locally. I will warn you that that help does not get updated as frequently as the online help make it updated. It's a static help, and so it may be out of date compared to what's online. But that's just a temporary measure for you if you're not online. Okay. So, and of course, we also have our Quickvids and our case knowledge, and I'll take you out there in a minute here. Of course, the home icon takes you back to the CaseWare Document Manager. That's the same thing that we had in the previous version. And then, of course, we've shown you the bookmarks. If you are using licensed content, there are some of our markets are using licensed content. They would have to add an activation code. That is where you would enter that activation code now. And then the last item we see is the knowledge library path. So previously in the ER document, you sometimes had to change that path. The template should be smarter now to recognize where your library path is, but if you've manually moved it, then you should come into the button here to go and find where your library is located. Okay, so all of that is our change to financials. I want to point out to you that we have online, we've got a knowledge base article, and if you haven't checked out our case knowledge site, please do. We have a lot of information that we put out there for you guys, how-tos, best practices, frequently asked questions. So what I've also done is we've got a document out here of where is it now. So if I just type in 11.0, don't have to know what the name of the article is. I'm going to select my GAAP financials. We'll do GASB and IFRS. And if I click Find Articles, you'll see that I've got a Financials 11.0, where is it now? Now, we sent this article out last month in our newsletter. If you missed it, I'm going to resend it out in September. And what we've done is a guide to the 11.0. Here is where it was located in ER in prior versions to 11.0, and what we've done is now shown you here it's on this ribbon, what ribbon it's on, and where in the ribbon. So if I want to my entities to display, this was a menu option before for parent and consolidated, my entity information, it's now in the entity information ribbon, and it's the presentation button. Okay, so that's what we've done is we've gone through. Now this is a combination. Financials is a product that has both IFRS and GAAP content, and so this some of the options that you might see are not applicable in the GAAP version. Same thing in the IFRS, might not be available in the the IFRS version, but essentially the menu items are almost identical. So this document combines both GAAP and IFRS. That's all that I have to show you guys today. I just want to let you know that September 19th is when we have our next CaseWare Zone. So I encourage you, if you haven't done that and want to register for it, please do so on our CaseWare Zone website. I also want to let you know that come the end of this year, we will not be supporting any version prior to version 10.3. So just want to make sure that you all update to 11.0 before the end of this year. And I believe that's all the information I have to give you now, and I think I'll take some questions here. I've got a question here. Does updating extended descriptions apply to the sub-map numbers? Good question. So when I was in my financial statements, I'm just going to pop over into the engagement mapping. When I changed the short-term investments, you can see it wrote it down to the investments, and it only does it at the level I apply that. So map number 113 is where I was in my financial statements. We'll just pop back over to show you that. I'll go back up into my balance sheet. And so I was on map number 113, so it is only map number 113 that changed. The sub-map numbers remain consistent with what may have previously been populated there. How do I add $ on column headers under the years? Well, that's a good question. I think my first source of information would be I would go to find out where that menu option was located in my previous ER, and then you'll be able to see exactly where to do that in your in the new ribbon. So I encourage you all to take a look at this document. Again, you can do a search on, just type in 11.0 in the case knowledge, or you can do the KB1267, search on that. That's the knowledge base article number. And that should be information on as to where you're finding this information. So specifically to address how do I add dollars on my column headers, it's under the global setup. So when you are doing something that affects your entire set of financial statements, it's in your global setup. Okay, so things like your headings, your column headings, what's my dollars reported in, expressed in, all of that information, it's all found in your global setup. I'm just looking to see if there are any other questions here. Financials 11, is Financials 11 only supported by Working Papers 2014? No, the version 11 is supported on Working Papers 2012, build 78. You have to be on at least that build. If you're on Working Papers 2013, you have to be on at least build 47. And then the latest release of Working Papers 2014 is build 61 R3, I believe are the numbers. So the version 11 is 2012, 2013, and 2014, but very specific builds, and we do have that information in the Getting Started guide, which, let me just double check. Is that the Working Papers Getting Started guide? I'm just double checking. Yeah, that is. But it's also available on our web page. If I go back to the financials, you can always find out what the requirements are for the latest release. When you go to the latest releases, if we select the 11.0, we always have the requirements listed for that version. So you can see that it is Working Papers 2012 build 78, 2013 is 47, and I also want to point out that we also changed the screen resolution this update because we're using the ribbons, and we know most people are using widescreen laptops. So the screen resolution is 1366 by 768. All right, just waiting for see if Yusuf is posting any more questions. Is there a French version of Financials, or do I have to translate? No, there is a French version of Financials. That has been released. It is, if I'm in Canada, is selected here. And if I just switch to my en français, and you can see that version 11 is available for download. So that is available right now. You can download that. Your firm author can download that. Again, a reminder to everybody, not everybody should be downloading the patch. Only the template author or firm author should be doing that. We don't want everybody running that patch on their individual local client files. They should be reinstalling the template once the firm author has updated the master template. Okay, looks like that might be the last question that's come through. If I haven't answered a question, we will certainly follow up with you later today or before the end of this week. And that being today is Thursday, that should be tomorrow. And I look forward to hearing your feedback on what you think of the, you know what, while I'm here, let me just quickly go I'm going to switch this back to English because my high school French is a distant memory. And I'm going to point out that here is the help for the financials, and if you click here, there you can see our help is now all online. All right, looks like that's the end of our questions. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. As I said, I hope you enjoy the changes and I hope it's easier for you. I look forward to your feedback, and I hope everybody has a great day and everybody has a great long weekend. Thanks, everyone.